Hey guys, it's Miss Hardy. I am recording for Biomedical Technology on Wednesday, September 9th. We have a few housekeeping things to cover today before we get started. First and foremost, if you saw me messing around in your grades this morning in Canvas and or PowerSchool, we noticed kind of a glitch in the system this morning when it came to transitioning grades from Canvas to PowerSchool. So when you log into PowerSchool, you will now see a corrected, shortened amount of grades, okay? The reason that being is when the grades were transitioning from Canvas to PowerSchool, they were not going correctly. And so we had people who were getting lower scores or the scores weren't matching up. So what that means is from now on, if you want to see a grade on an individual assignment, you can of course check Canvas. So if we do a quiz and you want to be able to immediately see what the quiz grade is, you can check Canvas. However, if you want to check a full class average, like if you want to know what your report card is going to be, or information about your progress report, you'll have to go to PowerSchool. I will be manually putting in the grades from here on out to avoid any further issues because it is quite time consuming. So what you see in PowerSchool right now is your grade in this class currently. It should be much improved from where you were sitting because I got rid of some of those zeros that really weren't contributing to your overall understanding of the concepts in the course. And just remember, if you want to see individual grades, of course, check Canvas, how you did on tests, quizzes, whatever. But if you want to see your overall grade, you will need to check PowerSchool. So, in speaking of that, today is your progress report day. So if you are a face-to-face learner, you'll get it today. Otherwise, most of you, we covered this in our discussion board for the day. So if you click on our discussion post for today, you'll respond to the following. Progress reports go home today. If you're a face-to-face learner, you will receive your progress report in class today. So that's just 2 of you. For the rest of you virtual learners or Week B learners, you can access your grade on PowerSchool at any time. They are updated as of 9/8/2020. If you are currently failing my class, which is no one, I would send an email and attempt to call home. But again, since none of you are currently failing, that is a non-issue. But if you were, I will always contact parent or guardians to figure out how we can help you because ultimately you are responsible for your grade. You need to look through your grades in my class and make sure that I put everything in that you turned in. If you have issues, you'll need to let me know by Thursday, 9/10. Keep in mind, we may have already done 20 things, but only 7 of those things were graded. I'm not going to bulk your grade up with participation grades because that doesn't accurately reflect how you know the material, but occasionally I will take the participation grades, so you need to make sure that you're completing everything in my class because I do take that into account when it comes towards the end of the semester and you need a point or two to go up a letter grade or you ask me for extra credit work in the event you didn't do as well on a test or something like that. And you'll need to respond below by numbering 1 through 4 and that you obviously agree, are aware of the process, and that you have looked at your grades. And this is your attestation that you're aware of where you are in the class and that I did my due diligence in letting you know how you are doing success-wise. So that's our discussion post for the day. Clicking on the daily agenda to see what's next. We are going to continue on in our animals and biomedical research unit. So we're still in unit 2. Okay, so your discussion and progress reports was first. Animals and biomedical research to review. Test dates. We will have a test early next week. So you do need to know that we will have a test early next week. My plan is to review the animals and biomedical research to PowerPoint and the worksheet that you have due tonight. So just a little reminder, your note guide is due tonight. We're going to review some of it today, most of it tomorrow and Friday, and then probably an overall review day on Monday and test either next Tuesday or next Wednesday. So just keep that in mind. So just a quick refresher, and remember, I see a little bit more than you guys see, and that's just because I have a lot of stuff in here, okay? So for animals and biomedical research, we have this first slideshow that kind of talks about why we use animals, what systems we use to test with different animals. And we have this research summary that we did here, why use animals in research. And then we have this second assignment that was assigned to you last week. So if you haven't even started, it's a little lengthy. So you're going to be pretty busy tonight because it is due tonight. Okay. So we're going to open this PowerPoint here and we're going to go through some of the important parts. This is actually everything for this unit. You don't need to know everything, so that's what I'm going to do today, is kind of go over what should be reviewed for you and where you should focus in on the new information. But before I do that, I do want to show on the live Zoom what this information looks like. This is what's due tonight. There may be some research that you'll need to do to correct these answers or provide these answers, but be mindful that no plagiarism is allowed. If I can go in and find your exact answer in Google, then you have plagiarized. Okay, so we will review the milestones in biomedical research with animals, such as like which animals contributed to the polio vaccine. We're going to review the regulatory acronyms and functions. So these are all some sort of animal welfare, animal rights agencies. Discuss the 3 R's. Guarantee you this is on your test and your final. And then some of the other things you see here that you may have to use the internet resource for. So that's what's going to be due tonight by 11:59. So again, navigating through our site, we're going to go back to our modules, back to animals and biomedical research, and just quickly review this this PowerPoint. I'm not going to read or teach everything in here because you guys all know how to read. We all know how to define PETA based on what we give you, but we'll quickly review. So any questions before we get started? Okay, so making sure that everyone is paying attention. This entire unit focuses on animals and biomedical research. So why we use animals, what we know about it, what we've gained from it, etc. So the first little section we've already covered is the use of animals. And it talks about why we use animals. So again, we can study a biological system. They're the best surrogate for humans. We talk about ethics and unknown side effects. It's a controlled setting. We talk about how we understand the physiology and pathology. We talk about the different types. So here's your reasons listed. We talk about the different types of animals. So mice, we talk about the 3 different scenarios that you had to provide and how when we didn't test on animals, some of the detrimental effects. These are those systems that you need to know. Percentages, of course, 97% are rodents. We talk about where we get these animals. We breed specifically for research, so we don't go round up all the stray cats on East Street. Okay, we breed specifically so that we can control certain traits in animals. If we need a certain coat or we need a certain genetic marker that we're testing on. And of course, we don't test on endangered species, such as the chimpanzee, unless we're testing to benefit that particular species. And then the 3 R's are refinement, reduction, and replacement. I always remember these in order, guys, because it's like one step to the next. So refinement is we're making things better, okay? We are finding ways to better the animals' lives in the laboratory setting, okay? And this can include toys for the animals or to give them some sort of enjoyment, because a lot of the times when people are arguing against animal research, they say that what kind of life is that to live? So we, as those who may support animal research or at least see the benefit in it, we want to improve their life in a laboratory setting. So that's refinement. Reduction allows us to use as few animals as possible to get similar results. So versus testing on 1,000 mice, could we use a fewer different type of animals to achieve the same results, such as if we could use 1 dog versus 3,000 mice, we are still reducing the number of animals that we are testing on. And then replacement, so using non-animal alternatives whenever they exist, so in vitro, computer models, etc. So you do need to know refine, reduce, and replace, and be able to detail them and then perhaps provide an example. So just a few more here, and another example of reduction is, do we really need to test on 3,000 mice to prove the same point 3,000 times, or could we test on 300? So just a different way of looking at it. Some alternatives include the cell cultures, computer modeling, and human studies, as long as we can maintain the ethics behind it. Okay. These are videos on how we use the 3 R's in a laboratory setting. They're quite interesting to see the 3 R's being used. For me personally, they're very emotional because I'm an animal person, but hey, it's very beneficial to see them. And the 3 R's kind of are our check system as animal research handlers to make sure, or lab technicians, to make sure that we're treating them appropriately. So here are some numbers as far as reduction in animal use and some of the limitations that come with the 3 R's if we reduce and choose to use other methods such as computer models, how the benefits outweigh what we're losing in that. And so that kind of goes back to those research methods that we talked about. You know, what are the limitations within using a computer model, and how we translate the results or interpret or extrapolate data from animal studies to humans. Okay, is it really a true thing? Yes, it is, of course. All right, what have we learned from animal research? These are specific diseases that have benefited from animal research, and you do need to be aware of these. So here is some of our questions that you may need to fill in. Okay, so polio disease, Alzheimer's disease, infant mortality with infants and sheep, cystic fibrosis, high blood pressure, obesity, AIDS, stroke, and then some review. So again, you'll need to be able to do these things. And if you get to this slide, this is slide number 36, and you feel like you can't answer these questions, then you have a true understanding of the first unit. So that is a quick review. Okay. The second part is the care of animals. So this is where we get into, in your paperwork or your worksheet, the different animal rights, animal welfare groups. So are our animals protected? And we're going to immediately start answering some of those questions on that worksheet. So what is the Animal Welfare Act? What is the difference in animal welfare versus animal rights? And who monitors those things? So it is federal and local law that if we choose to test on animals, they have a certain minimum treatment they must receive, okay? And so you're going to see the Act, you're going to see IACUC, AAALAC, which you may have to look up the exact definition, so using your internet resources, but these are what they do and how they protect animals, and it gives lots of information. And you do need to know like who's in charge of these mandatory unannounced surprise inspections, and knowing obviously that that's the USDA, knowing that what that stands for. And so while there's a lot of information on these slides, guys, the worksheet that I gave you really breaks it down for you in a much easier way so that everything is a little bit more easy to understand. One thing that we haven't really talked about yet is why we have to take care of these animals. A lot of people don't understand, what does it matter if an animal is scared to death when we're testing on them? Or what does it matter if the animal is in pain? Can that change your data? So I'm going to ask the guys in class, if an animal is in pain, do you think it can change or skew our data in any way? Let's say we're testing a new drug on this animal. If the animal is in pain, do you think it can mess with our results? They both say yes. Why? It can react differently in a testing environment because it's either in pain, it's scared, it's in that fight or flight sensory response. Anything you want to add, Brayden? Absolutely. So the brain releases chemicals based on our body's responses to stimulus, which would be our body's response to what's going on. And if you're in a cage, if the animal is in a cage in an unknown environment, the animal is hungry, in pain, hasn't been taken care of, then it can 100% skew your data. So whether or not you agree with animal testing or not, you wouldn't want to spend all of this money and this time putting in the animal testing portion of it and not be able to use that data to your benefit, whether or not the data supports your medicine or not. So the animals cannot be in pain. They have to be well fed and taken care of. They have to have access to vets and things like that to treat them so that the results are considered reliable. For the same reason, in the first level of clinical research, you will need to test healthy volunteers. You have to have healthy animals to test on. And that's really outlined here in slide 42. Okay. So as a result, if animals are undernourished, poorly housed, or stressed, the data may not be reliable. And reliable data is, of course, how you seek FDA approval. Environmental enrichment is what you're going to see here, and that's providing toys, providing companions, etc. Here's more information on some of those acronyms of facilities and agencies, committees, etc. Do the scientists care about the animals? Do they treat them well? Okay, so research animals must be cared for 7 days a week, 365 days a year, regardless of weather or holidays. So whether you agree or disagree, the animals are provided a minimum of care. Okay. Are lab animals suffering or in pain? So you'll see up here that it talks about OLAW, and you're going to look up information on that. Okay, thank you. Okay, so here we go, the difference in animal welfare and animal rights. We're going to spend just a second talking about this, okay? So animal welfare is not the same as animal rights. Animal welfare is the overall status of the animal. So it's fully supported by the scientific community that animal welfare is and should be considered. Animal welfare states that all people have moral obligations to treat animals humanely and responsibly. Animal rights is different. Animal rights say that animals have the same rights as humans and should not have to endure any sort of animal testing. And they should not be used to preserve human life, educate physicians or vets, or cure human disease. So you will need to make sure that you understand what is the difference between animal rights and animal welfare, and then what groups are which. Okay, so moving right along, you have, again, some more groups here. So PETA is the big one that we talk about. When you get, guys, to these slides that talk about the timeline activities, becoming an expert exercise, and then completing your worksheet during the lecture, you can disregard those because that's something we would have done in class as a group, and we are unfortunately not able to do that this semester. Then you're going to get to Unit 2.03, which is careers in animal biomedical research. We don't have a lot of people who are traditionally interested in biomedical research careers when they come into this class. However, this exposure will increase your idea of all the options that you have. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a veterinarian. There are tons of fields of biomedical research and careers. So you have people who work with agriculture, trainer, who can train people who use seeing eye dogs and things like that. Behavioralists, so you can watch people who work with canine species, feline species, primatologist, grooming and handling, assistive therapy. So a lot of the times I don't think people understand that there are sides to animal research that are not animal testing. And so make sure you just kind of look through these slides because they're super interesting, and it gives you an idea of all of the different types. So rehab jobs, such as if you wanted to work in wildlife management, game wardens, things like that, those are all considered biomedical research careers. Conservationist, public health, animal control, and then some of the requirements, degrees, experiences, school information, and then it just goes through to list some interesting careers. So I always thought I wanted to be a zookeeper growing up, so that's also included here. So that is just some generic information as well. So what you guys are focusing on today, of course, is finishing through that PowerPoint so that you familiarize yourself with all of that information, and then making sure that you complete this worksheet. It's due tonight. So I've already pulled it up one time. I'm just going to pull it up again. And guys, I'm not expecting a paragraph of information here, but I am expecting that you, at least for this section, which is really, really important, section number 2, you know what these are, you know who they benefit. Are they, with the USDA, they're the ones who do those random inspections. Is PETA an animal rights group or an animal welfare group? And knowing what the 3 R's are. And I do know that occasionally they will ask you about which animals contributed to which biomedical research advance. So let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to stop sharing at this time. Does anybody have any questions in class? Okay, so I'm going to stop the recording. Let me know if you have questions. This is due tonight. And remember, if you have questions regarding your current grade in my class, you'll need to send me an email, call me, or text me by tomorrow, because once we kind of get through tomorrow, you'll start getting grades on that second half of the first 6 weeks. So just let me know.